Yes, I say we abandon this ship. We get the shuttle and we just get the hell out of here. We take our chances and just hope that somebody will pick us up. Here's your look at the NECA toys. Alien Lambert. In a remote region of the galaxy, the United States, space tug Nostromo, carrying a cargo of mineral ore, makes its return journey to Earth. The ship's crew, 5 men, 2 women, and a cat, are awakened from their hypersleep chamber when Mother, the onboard computer, monitors a strange transmission. According to company law, the crew must investigate any signal indicating possible intelligent life. What begins as a routine search mission quickly escalates into a nightmare of unimaginable terror when the crew discovers and brings aboard an extraterrestrial life form. I'd like to thank the folks over at NECA Toys that provided the sample of Aliens Lambert that we could have a look at in this review. Of course, before we get down to looking at the figure, let's take this trusty tape measure of mine and figure out how tall it actually stands, how tall she stands. Taking the tape measure, like I said, to the very top of her head, Lambert is 7.1 inches in height. We can switch that over to centimeters, revealing that the figure is just a little over, just a tad taller than 18.1 centimeters to be exact. Sad to report that unfortunately at the time of this review, I couldn't find the original Lambert that we had a look at many, many moons ago. But for some comparisons, we can also bring in some other compression suit characters. There she is next to Ellen Ripley, the figure we just finished having a look at. And not that long ago, we also had a look at compression suit Kane. Now, 2 of the 3 figures that we're currently looking at have one thing in common. Both Lambert and Kane, sadly, this is the only way that we've gotten these figures so far. While Ripley has been granted a jumpsuit version, or the Nostromo crew outfit, sadly neither Lambert nor Kane have actually been given that just yet. I'm hoping that's something that NECA will rectify with a down-the-road release. For Lambert's accessories, she comes included with a Rexon RXF M5 EVA pistol. It's a bit of a mouthful. You can see it's just a molded black pistol with a dry brushing of silver added over top of it, and some nice burgundy added to the end as well as the end of the barrel as well. I've always been a big fan of this gun. All, or not all, but most of the compression suit figures have come included with it. I had to kind of stop myself for a second because compression suit Ripley didn't come included with this gun. But you can take this and you can fit this into her hand. If you're looking at the figure, by the way, the grip on the one side seems too small to properly hold that gun. This is more so designed for holding the flashlight that she's going to come included with as well. So take instead this hand right here and take the handle of the gun. You already know by now, I'm sure, how to fit a handle of a gun into a figure's hands, but just fit that down. And providing you get it far enough down, she does actually have a trigger finger that sits perfectly right onto the trigger, just like that. The plastic you'll see when it comes to this figure, not only in the suit, but also in the hands, is a more denser variety. It's a little more difficult to pry those fingers away from the palm. You could submerge it in hot water, sure, fine and good. Or you can also take yourself a hairdryer. Just run a few passes over that if you're having some difficulty getting the fingers opened enough to hold the gun in hand. Let's go ahead and take that out of her hand. And like other compression suit characters, if you spin the figure around, there's a holster here on the back. It isn't so much a holster as it is a loop. Just take the gun. You can either do one of 2 things. You can either try to fight and struggle over all the things that are on the front of it, or you can take it and enter it in from the back handle area. Just fit it over top. And I find it helps if you rest it. Not the greatest of jobs, mind you. But if you rest it just underneath this part of the gun, it seems to hold pretty good. Not the greatest, but pretty good enough that if you're not going to be banging the figure, it should stay well enough in place. I think for the purpose of the fact that it will fall out as it's already started to move on me, I'm just going to take that and put it to the side. Let's have a look at the other accessory that comes included with the figure. This involves me probably having to put the figure down here for 1 second. She comes included with a flashlight. The flashlight, again, molded here in black plastic, gets a little bit of additional green paint added to the top where the handle is, a brushing of silver on the back, and some additional silver on the front. I suppose to mimic the idea that the lantern, the light, is actually on. Providing, again, you got the light hitting it the right way. These studio lights actually do a pretty good job. It almost looks like it's on. And you can take that. You can actually even put it in this hand too. Just rest it on top of the fingers. Or, again, you can take it and put it onto this side of the hand. If, of course, you want to have the figure displayed with two accessories instead of just the one. The last thing she comes included with, very carefully putting that to the side. The figure, of course, comes included with the domed helmet. I guess before we look at the domed helmet, it probably would make some sense to first look at Lambert's defaulted head sculpt. I still feel it's one of the best head sculpts we've gotten from the Nostromo crew. Again, the only thing that's really missing from this equation is the fact that the lower half of her from the neck down is still the compression suit. At some point, I hope we do get ourselves a jumpsuit, because you would think if they already have the license rights to pull off a likeness like this, you would think that the sign-off would already be there, that they could probably pull off a jumpsuit version of her or a Nostromo suit of her later on. The alternate head sculpt, just reaching off to the side, is this one right here. Definitely a more panicked looking Lambert. To swap the head sculpt off will involve me just popping that off the ball joint. The reason why I would do that is, of course, it comes included with the domed helmet. You can't just, whichever head you decide to go with, you just can't put, I know we've talked about this already with Ripley, trying to fit this over top will just result in scratching the plastic and damaging the paint, so you really don't want to do that. Instead, go the smarter route of just removing this from the ball peg like that. And just quickly stop yourself from putting this onto the ball peg just yet, because you're still going to have the same problem of this not fitting properly over top of her new head sculpt. So instead, what you really want to do, take the head off, grab the domed helmet, or at least the bottom half of it. It doesn't actually have to go just in just yet, just enough that you're holding both the things together. And then while you're holding the outside of it, you can kind of bring your fingers wider apart like this to kind of hold both the things together. Just then from there, pop the head onto the ball peg. Just like that. There we go. And then you don't have to worry really about having to damage the head sculpt or the paint. From there, you can just adjust the head to the way that you want it. And then from there, you can take the bottom half of this. And Lambert, for reasons unknown, she seems to have a better job. See this little canal that runs around almost like the moat of a castle? If you take the back end of it and you push it down into it, it seems to hold one of the best of all the figures that we've looked at for the compression suit. Again, reasons unknown. It just seems to hold a little bit better on this figure than some of the others we've looked at before. From there, you're going to go take the top part of the dome, which has an illuminated light painted nicely there in yellow. And really, again, like the coloring that they add to this, the oxidization of that off blue coloring, boy, really gives a nice level of realism. From there, you're going to go ahead and take the helmet, put it on top, and finish off the remaining look of Lambert. Well, it's not 100% finished. The last thing you will want to do is take the hose from the back of the tank. There's two of them here. Take the largest of the two, and that'll fit right into the hole on the top here. It almost sounds more like a tutorial now than a review. Just fit that in place. And then take the smaller tube. It's supposed to really fit into this hole right here. Sometimes you can get it in there. Sometimes it goes there in and then it just pops back out. I'm just going to leave it out for the time being. And there's Lambert with the alternate head sculpt. Still visible enough that you can see she is very much stressed and panicked out on the inside of that helmet. It's distorted in such a way that it throws the head sculpt just off a little bit, but not enough that it loses the impact of seeing just how terrified she actually is on the inside of that helmet. Very, very nicely done. Let's go ahead now and reverse all the process that we just finished doing. So all those steps that involved us putting this in, we're going to pull that out. We're going to take the top of the dome off. And we're also going to remove this from just the back part of the area. Don't take that off just yet. Then grab onto the head. You can do that with either just holding onto the side of the face, front of the face. Side of the face I find is actually easier. And just while all the stuff is together, just wiggle the head off the ball joint. And just like that, you've got yourself a decapitated head of Lambert. The reason why I've done all this is just simply because I want to put on this head sculpt, because I feel, again, it's the best of the ones that we get at least included with this figure. Yeah, so again, just reiterating, it's definitely one of the best head sculpts we've gotten, I feel, from the Nostromo crew. at some point, I just only hope that we actually get ourselves a crew outfit version of Lambert. It's fine and good that we actually get ourselves the compression version, but we already have this figure. Well, if you had picked up the version 1 before, I really feel, again, it's a great opportunity for NECA to continue this line. There's still a lot of figures, characters, Kane, for example, and Lambert, that really deserve crew outfits. I'm hoping to see that gets happening at some point. But in the meantime, let's have a look at the rest of the detailing on the figure. Again, really good looking head sculpt. So much to the point that they actually outlined the eyes in a lighter pink, just to add a little bit of warmth there. The hair is really nicely sculpted as well. You can see it from the back side there also. And of course from there we can kind of mosey our way down for the rest of the figure's details, starting with the back of the tank. The valves and the rusted nature, again, that nice oxidization of the blue that's added in there as well. The suit is a more bluer variety. Of course, you can probably see that as you've got your eyes opened right now. If we move the figure over, and again, bringing in the Kane that we looked at before, more so just as a comparison of colors. Kane's colors are more of that mustard yellow. Lambert's colors I actually prefer much more the bluer colors. The two different shades of blue, actually. There's kind of like an aqua blue in there, and then there's like a dark navy blue on the areas that would hinge. I guess not so much here on the lower areas or legs. But I personally like the bluer color of the compression suits myself over the yellows. The detailings are going to be about the same. It does seem almost like Lambert's shoulders are just a little bit longer, but I think it's actually just more so my eyes playing tricks on me. One thing that is unique about both the characters, not just the colors, but also the fact that they're badged differently on the front. You can see on the front of his, it says Kane. On the front of hers, for obvious reasons, it's going to say Lambert. So those little attentions of detail I certainly do appreciate in NECA's parts. Again, you got a lot of good color going on here. There's some limitations, of course, when it comes to the figure's articulation, more of which we'll talk about in a second. But I certainly will award points for not only the sculpt, but the paint is so good on this figure. Again, the different blues that they used, the grays as well for the meshing there as well. And even the lower half that covers off the calf guards here. Really nice use of the beige color with the additional straps done in gray. It's a really pretty looking figure. Just again, I hope at some point we're going to get ourselves an actual Nostromo suit version of her. For the figure's articulation, let's go ahead and have a look at that right now. Lambert's head rotates all the way around. It hinges up and it hinges down and back and forth as well. If you decide to display this figure with this head sculpt instead, because it's pegged the exact same way, you're going to get afforded all the same articulation. Though, once you have the dome in place, it's going to be a little bit harder to get access to that head sculpt. As for the arms hinge out the exact same way as the compression suit Ripley that we just finished looking at. The shoulders also work the exact same way that they're attached to this part of the collar and not attached to the shoulder, which means that you can bring then the arms out at a very easy to bend 90 degrees. You can also bring the arms forward and back. I wouldn't twist this all the way around. I think by then you're probably starting to push your luck. This may pop right off and even just potentially break altogether, so just be careful. Go back and forth, but know your limits as well. She has a swivel at the top of her bicep, right above where that meshing is. She does also have a hinge in her elbows. Now, the hinging in the elbows, I don't know if you can actually even see it or not. The track is literally right there. I mean, that's almost the size of the end of a pin. It's very, very tiny. So because of that, unfortunately, you're not going to get much mileage when it comes to bending her at the elbows. Sure, you can fine and good rotate the lower forearm, but unfortunately, you really can't do too much when it comes to her elbow bend. The hands rotate all the way around, hinging, of course, back and forth. Upper torso is on a ball joint, as well. In addition to that, she has the lower torso ball joint. Legs split out at a full splits for Lambert. You can bring the legs forward and back. She has a swivel, essentially, where that thigh attaches into the peg. Probably didn't need the pop like that. She doesn't have any swivel here, but she does have a swivel on her lower leg, essentially from like the knee down. Speaking of the knee, she does have the bend there in the knee, and again, that rotation back and forth. And of course, she has the articulation in the feet. You can move those back and forth. You can rotate those all the way around. And for those that love their figures with ankle articulation, then yes, you can also get ankle articulation here on Lambert as well. Feel a bit disappointed, unfortunately, I didn't have the original Lambert here for the purpose of this review, where I assumed she was going to be stored away along with Compression Suit Ripley when I found her. Sure enough, her whereabouts just sort of disappeared. Ooh. I will say, though, from what memory serves me, and it doesn't always serve me so well, I feel like the version 2 of Lambert has a much better paint job. I might even just after this review go back and watch my original review of the figure until I, again, am able to find that original figure. One of the benefits as well of getting these version 2 releases is not only do you get improved upon paint, but with the compression suits specifically, because the characters do also have domes, you can then choose for yourself, if you already have those original figures, display one figure unhelmeted, like you're seeing right now here with Lambert, and display the other figure, the original figure that you have with the domed helmet on. And then you get the best of both worlds. Sure, yes, Lambert may be a double-dipped re-release on NECA's part, but at least she's a good example of a double-dipped figure. It's not always a bad thing that a company goes back and decides to re-release a figure that they had released already years ago. First of all, it's a good opportunity for people now getting into the collecting of Alien figures. It means then they don't have to go to places like eBay. It's really the last course of action I think one should take. Because, of course, if you're trying to get an original Lambert prior to the re-release of the figure, you're going to be paying a lot more for the figure release. At least with this as an opportunity available, it means you can go to a local retail store and pay retail prices for it. So for that reason, I don't think it's a bad thing at all that NECA decided to re-release the figures. But a lot of times, it's not just, let's take the original figures, slap them into brand new packaging, and just release them to store shelves. NECA goes back, corrects, and fixes maybe some of the issues that would have plagued the original figure release, whether it be a new head sculpt, whether it simply just be new paint. New paint alone is, I think, the valid reasoning for wanting to get this figure again. Unfortunately, I didn't have the original Lambert that I could have done the comparisons in this review, but I mean, even looking at that compression suit Ripley that we looked at earlier, that head sculpt is a lot better on the newer release. A little softer on the paint, and it certainly doesn't look as kind of shiny, sweaty like that original Ripley that we had gotten. So improvements are being made to these figures. They're not just, hey, let's take the original Lambert, put it back in the packaging, release her to store shelves. It clearly looks like NECA are improving the paint jobs on these figures, and while the bodies are staying the same and the limited articulation is still rather present here on the compression suits, you really, as a result of it, get a nicer looking Lambert to be put on display. It's still not to say that us collectors aren't anxiously awaiting a release of an Nostromo crew outfit Lambert and a crew outfit Kane. I'm trying to think if Dallas actually got a crew outfit. Thinking about that right now. But there's still definitely slots still available for this line to continue. Again, I would have to think that if NECA Toys already have the likeness rights for this head sculpt on Lambert, you got to think at some point they're going to be releasing a crew outfit Lambert to go along with the rest of the crew of Nostromo. At any rate, a big thank you to the folks over at NECA Toys that provided this sample of Compression Suit Lambert version 2 that we could have a look at in this review. Have you picked the figure up for yourself yet? If so, let me know down below in the comments section. And if you are new to this channel, make sure you're hitting the subscribe button down below. You can also meander your way on over to the escape pod. That's where the bell notification is. Just make sure you're turning that on so you get those friendly reminders. And just an FYI, we are still wrapping up not this review necessarily, but we're also going to be wrapping up this wave of Alien figures with the next review, which is the H.R. Giger Alien. Really excited to have a look at that one. So there's definitely a lot more stuff coming your way, so make sure you keep your peepers peeled to this channel. And as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.